Okay, looks like we are live and rolling. Let me make sure that I am recording everywhere, get my audio synced up, and let's do this. So welcome to the automated webinar. The webinar so good we named it twice. I just made that up, but it's true. This is an automated webinar about automated webinars. Sort of a little bit of webinar inception going on, but I hope it's going to be really valuable for you. In fact, I'm pretty confident it will be, because one of the benefits you will learn about automated webinars is you have the ability to fix things in post, which is a sentence that is not only fun to say, but functionally or strategically important here. So because this webinar is recorded ahead of time, I have the ability to splice in little animations to illustrate the topics that I'm talking about, or edit out any potential curse words I might utter out of frustration or excitement or whatever. And it gives me the ability to cut from my backyard to wherever else I might be recording, whether I'm out, running errands, or at the grocery store, or when you're at the coffee shop,
or at the dentist,
or anywhere, right? So that's the benefit of, or one of the benefits of an automated webinar, is that you prepare it ahead of time. So you have the ability to rehearse, you have the ability to plan. We'll get to some of the drawbacks, but I want to be clear that because this webinar is recorded, I'm not on the other end responding to your chat. And that's a trade-off, because instead you get the luxury of being able to consume it at whatever time is convenient for you. Okay, so I think the benefits are pretty clear. You can prepare ahead of time, you can record multiple versions, you can edit, you can splice, and of course the webinar is delivered at a time that you know is convenient for the attendees. That's all well and good. As far as disadvantages go, a lot of people will say that it's really challenging to replicate the type of energy that you can have on a live webinar, simply because you don't have actual attendees when you're doing the recording. So that's just something to be aware of. There's a lot of resources out there in terms of background and tips and suggestions for recording an automated webinar. If you do a little bit of Google research about automated webinars in general, you'll probably find that there's a bunch of advice people have given saying you don't want to reference the time of day. You don't want to reference the day of the week, right? Because they're all, or most of those resources are under the impression that you don't want your attendees to know that it's an automated webinar, which is just, it's silly, in my opinion. Obviously, I put it in the title of this webinar. I put it on the registration page for this webinar. And here we are in the first couple of minutes, and I'm telling you this is an automated webinar. Now, why am I doing that? It's because I don't think that has to detract from the ultimate value that a webinar can provide, right? The people who are saying to act as if it's real time, they're saying that because they're worried that if it wasn't live, people would go away or wouldn't engage the same way. And I don't think engagement is predicated on the impression that something is delivered live. I think it's largely dependent on the value of what is being presented. So that's my 2 cents anyway. And the reason I feel that way is because let's talk about, just for a minute, the relationship our prospects and customers have with automated emails, right? A lot of times people know your emails are automated, especially if you're using Infusionsoft, but that doesn't make them any less valuable. People still reply to good emails even when they know they're automated. And I believe that people will engage with and interact with valuable content in an automated webinar, even if they know it's automated. So rather than trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes, I figure let's just be transparent about it. I don't think that's going to detract from the overall experience. Now, let's get right into it. So the agenda for this webinar is, first of all, setting context. I want to make sure everybody knows why we're here. And we're going to do that by talking about where an automated webinar strategy fits within your lifecycle marketing plan. Now, if you're not familiar with lifecycle marketing, I'm going to give you a quick rundown on that as well. So after we frame things up, then we're going to roll up our sleeves and do the actual technical setup inside of Demio to build out the automated webinar. Then we'll jump into Infusionsoft and I'll show you a simple campaign structure in Infusionsoft's campaign builder that you can use to support your automated webinar. Spoiler, I'm using that campaign for this webinar as well. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some next action steps and recommendations for you, and we'll tie it all together and put a bow on it. The goal of this webinar is to dissect what it takes to build, produce, and launch an automated webinar. Now, that's a tactic. I want to be clear. In your overall marketing plan, an automated webinar is a tactic. And a tactic is only successful if it's deployed within a overall or overarching strategy, a cohesive customer journey that somebody has designed. So I want to talk specifically about where this particular automated webinar fits in my customer journey, right? The customer journey that I'm building and using automation to encourage people to progress down. This automated webinar fits in a very specific spot, and I'm emphasizing that because the goal is for you to build your own if that appeals to you, and it starts with identifying where in your customer's progression path you want this tool or this strategy to sit, right? So you probably are familiar with the concept of lifecycle marketing, right? Lifecycle marketing is about building, I describe it as like a roller coaster, right? You're laying down all the individual pieces of track. You're choosing where you want the loop-de-loops or the, or the part where they go, the slow climb and the giant hill and where the camera is and all the elements of a roller coaster. You're designing that with the purpose of queuing your prospects up so that they can go down it and have the same repeatable, enjoyable experience time and time again. That, in a nutshell, is what lifecycle marketing is. It's designing the experience you want your customers to have over and over, right? So lifecycle marketing largely progresses from stage to stage to stage in kind of lockstep with the customer journey. So it starts with traffic, right? Getting eyeballs on your Facebook page or on your website or on your various social channels. And then from there, capturing leads, right? So the second stage is actually collecting their information. Usually that's done through an opt-in or a lead magnet or a landing page, right? And then from there, once you have their information in your database, you can follow up with them. You can deliver whatever it was that you promised. You can start to build some rapport. You can engage with them and learn about them and then connect them with the appropriate products or services that you offer. Or if you don't offer anything that they need, tell them that, right? So I consider that phase like nurture. It's relationship building. It's helping the prospect get to know you while you learn about them so that you can serve one another or determine whether you're going to have a connection there and how you want your relationship to evolve. And then there's an inflection point. It's the sale or the conversion piece of the puzzle, right? So the problem I see a lot of people run up against is that they treat the sale, right, the point of purchase, as the end of the customer journey. When in reality, it's just a shift in the way that in what we know about them and the way that we treat them. So they go from being a prospect to being a customer, but that doesn't mean our relationship with them has expired. It doesn't mean that we're done. As soon as we swipe their credit card, they're off the cliff on the or on the end. It's more like an evolution in terms of we've reached a new stage in what our relationship looks like with this individual. Okay, and then from the sale, you move into the fulfillment stage where you actually deliver whatever it was that they purchased, whether it's a product or a digital product or a service or they've joined your membership program. And you want to make sure that that experience is ironed out, and obviously there's a lot of opportunities to use automation within there. And beyond the purchase, there may be a strategic path you want to take them on to guide them towards the next product, right? If you've identified a product progression path, it makes a lot of sense to naturally guide people toward that. If you know that once they have an appetite for this, initial course, eventually they're going to have an appetite for the more robust one, the 202 or 303 or whatever the next one is in that path. So then you go down that path a little further, and you have to decide, cool, what is the next thing for them? And it could be that you want them to refer a friend. It could be that you want them to join your partner program, or it could be that you just want them to circle back and buy the same thing, again, depending on your business and your model and what it is that you sell, that journey after the sale will look different and be unique to you. So the reason I lay all that out there is because the automated webinar fits in this giant, long, comprehensive journey. It fits at a couple of different areas pretty naturally. Okay, so this is the specific customer journey that I have designed around this automated webinar. So if you're listening right now, you are here in the deliver stage. And obviously you can see there's some stuff before this and some stuff after that. We will break all of that down, but I wanted to just give you context as to where we are right now. So most logically, it serves as a lead gen mechanism. So that means you can drive paid traffic. So you can run Facebook ads, or you can run Twitter ads or LinkedIn ads, and send them to a registration page where they can register for your automated webinar. And that's this, right? That gives you the opportunity to demonstrate your expertise, to provide some value, and to help them determine if they want to move forward with whatever it is you want them to do next, right? So there's an exchange there. And that's true for any lead magnet. It's not just automated webinars, but when they sign up for something, there's an expectation that they'll be getting something back, right? It'll be worth their while. They traded you their information in exchange for whatever that thing was. So most automated webinars you see will be used as lead gen. And if you're watching this right now, it's probably because you saw an ad of mine, and so you ended up here because you were curious why I had a webinar that I named twice, the automated webinar. But it could also be that you are already in my database and you're being retargeted. So between initial opt-in and people signing up for something or becoming Monkeypod customers, I have a nurture journey. It's actually pretty long. And there's a lot of different touch points. There's a lot of, micro decision diamonds and segmentation based on how people got in there and what they have clicked on to help align people with the appropriate resources. And this webinar, though it doesn't exist yet, right? Because right now I'm recording it, but it will ultimately serve as a resource that I can direct people to as part of their nurture journey as well. So I've got kind of a two-pronged approach for this. I will be sending cold traffic to it, meaning people who may not have a relationship with Monkeypod or may not know anything about me. Hi, I'm Greg. But I will also be using this as a value add or as an opportunity to teach and enhance my existing relationship with people who might be in that nurture stage, right? So if that's you, what's up? Hope the nurture process is going well. And the reason I feel comfortable being so transparent about that is because marketing isn't, it isn't an evil term. I'm not trying to trick anyone into becoming a Monkeypod customer. I'm not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eyes. I want this to genuinely be a win-win. And so that's an important underlying theme to pretty much everything Monkeypod does, is I don't mind pulling back the curtain and showing you what's going on the other side because I don't have anything to hide. And my hope is that the things I do, either I get them right and you learn from that, or I get them wrong and you learn from that too. Okay, so that's where we're at here, is I wanted to emphasize the lifecycle marketing strategy is pretty much universal. I have seen it work for businesses across industries, across the globe, of all sorts of size and, number of employees and, annual revenue range, right? All types of businesses can adopt a lifecycle marketing strategy. What it boils down to at its core are attracting traffic, right? Nurturing leads, converting those leads to sales, and then fulfilling on it. And every business, whether you're a nonprofit or an e-commerce store or a consultancy, every business has elements of those stages in their customer journey. Now, where we're going today is concentrating on a micro tactic, the automated webinar, and how that fits into the overarching strategy that is lifecycle marketing. So I say all that because I want to make sure you're oriented as to where this is in the bigger picture. Now, the next stage that we're going to dive into is the actual setup of the automated webinar. So for today's purpose, I'm using Demio. Demio is my webinar platform, and not too long ago, as of the time of recording this, they introduced automated webinars. And that's always been something that I'm curious about. I've seen it done in various capacities for different marketers in different fields, and I thought, someday I'll launch my own. So as I set out to undertake building my own, I thought, this could be a valuable opportunity to teach people as I'm getting it set up. So I actually haven't launched an automated webinar prior to this, but I'm going to show you the back end of Demio and what it takes to set it up. And if you use Infusionsoft, great. Demio has a native integration with Infusionsoft that makes it really simple. But if Infusionsoft isn't your jam, if that's not the CRM or email marketing tool that you use, Demio is a standalone platform that it may serve your purposes anyway. Okay. So that being said, let's set it up. Okay, so first thing we need to do is log into our Demio account. If you don't yet have Demio, I recommend it. It's stupid simple to set up. It integrates natively with Infusionsoft as well as a handful of other email marketing tools. If you're going to sign up with it, I would love it if you used my affiliate link so that I can get a couple bucks in commission from that. So once you're inside, you want to add a new event. This is your dashboard here. So you click add a new event. You got a couple of options for a live event, which is a standalone one-off webinar, or an automated event, which is what we're doing, where you get to upload a recording. So we're going to name our event here. So name your event. This is the 2X automated webinar. Actually, let's call it the automated webinar. And then you can choose from videos you have previously uploaded or webinars you have previously recorded, or you can upload your video. So let's go ahead and choose our automated webinar. Here we go. And we will click open. Okay, so once the video uploads, you can see it takes a few minutes to process. However, you can actually just click continue and finish setting up the rest of the settings while that processes. So after you have defined the event name and chosen your video file, you want to choose when this event is happening. So you can choose a set of dates in the future. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday of next week. You could choose one time. I'm going to host it on, January 1st at 2 p.m. or on demand only, which just allows them to register immediately when they hit the registration page. So for us, we're going to choose recurring, which allows us to designate a number of upcoming sessions, which will be evergreen. So no matter when they visit the registration page, they'll have a few different options. And that can be, every day, every week, or every month. So I'm going to leave mine as every day. I'm going to choose 4 p.m. Let's actually change that to 3 p.m. And then I'll also want to add a time in the morning. So let's choose 8 and a.m. So that way I've got a time that is accessible for my friends in Europe as well as for my friends in Australia and, of course, the east and west coast of the U.S. You could do a few more times if you wanted it multiple times a day, but I'm going to get to a setting in just a moment which will sort of make a lot of that obsolete anyway. So webinar start date. If for some reason you didn't want to launch this immediately, if you wanted to set it up for a date in the future, you could schedule its release. I'm just going to choose today, which happens to be November 27th. And then you can define on-demand availability. So by default, it is off. If you enable this, when they visit the registration page, they'll have options for 3 p.m., for 8 a.m., or they'll see an option that it's starting right now and they can join the webinar right away. So I'm going to do both of those. The maximum number of upcoming sessions that should be shown, this is going to be per date. So if I do today, there'll be 7 sessions starting now, and then 2 each day for the next 3 days, that sort of thing. So I'm going to leave 3. That's fine. Down here you can choose your time zone as well as any blackout dates. Blackout dates are just dates that you don't want the webinar to be available. For example, Christmas or New Year's Day. You could also black out certain days of the week if you never want it to happen on a Sunday or something like that. Once you have defined your blackout dates, you just click next or continue. And let's do that one more time. So at the top, you have the options. What's this event about? As well as when it's happening. And then you have a section of additional options that you can configure. So preferences is whether you want the chat to be private or public, and then whether you want to redirect people to the end of the session. So I'm going to say yes, I want to redirect them. And this is where you would put a specific page that you have built that you want the attendees for your webinar to end up at after the webinar. So monkeypodmarketing.com/Margarita. I'm just finishing up a delightful margarita. So we'll put that. The URL doesn't really matter. It's just going to be a unique page that you have built specifically for this purpose. Okay. Once I've done that, let's move on to my admin team. You can define moderators and people who can manage this webinar or interact with the chat in real time. But you don't need any of that, right? This is an automated webinar. There doesn't have to be a human in attendance for this to run. And then the registration page, you can build your own. You can embed. They have a registration widget that you can embed onto your own page. I'm just going to customize this one briefly. So automated webinar. We'll put the webinar so good we named it twice, right? And then I can actually add a video here. So over on this page, you'll see I've got my automated webinar 2x registration page video. So let's embed and share, and it needs this link, I believe. So we pop that in here. And it should, load right up, and it inherits the brand colors. So you can see I've got my Monkeypod green. If there's anything else you needed to add to this page, you can obviously customize this as much as you like. But just for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to go ahead and click Save, and then close this window. You can also edit the form fields. So if there's additional information you wanted to collect, you can. I'm just going to leave it at first name and email. I don't need any additional details. And then finally, you can customize the thank you page. One of the benefits of using Demio is their standalone registration and thank you pages. They're fine. They're really clean. They're elegant. I don't mind them just the way that they are out of the box. But if you wanted to customize it, you could build your own page and, of course, define that URL there. So let's click Done. The next is the email notifications. So you can have instant confirmation. You can have 24 hours, 1 hour, or 15 minutes before, and you can toggle any of these on or off and edit the copy in those emails. Again, I'm going to leave those just the way they are. But on this next section with integrations, if you wanted, you could turn all of these off, and you could send your follow-up information via Infusionsoft or whatever your CRM is. So I've already got my Infusionsoft account connected to Demio. If you don't, you're going to want to do that first. But once I click Yes to enable that, it opens up this settings dialog window with the Infusionsoft tab. And what I want to do is set up a general setting, which would be a tag that I want to have applied when somebody registers for this webinar. So somewhere in here, there we go. I've got the automated webinar 2x registered tag. You can see that's been created in my Infusionsoft account, as well as the automated webinar 2x attended and automated webinar 2x missed. So in Demio, I can choose when an attendee shows up or no shows, I can have it run one of those actions. Now, I did a test run through before I recorded this, and this was happening to me there as well. I wasn't able to define these until I saved it and came back into this. So I'm going to try that in just a moment. But I should also point out that there's field matching here. So whatever your info you're collecting, this is where you would define how it's connected to Infusionsoft and where that information goes, as well as the one-click registration link. So if you want to use a one-click registration link in your Infusionsoft emails, this is the URL you would allow people to click in order to register for the next session of this webinar. Now, the last setting here at the very bottom is save the join link. So each person who registers for your webinar is going to have a unique link that they use to join when the webinar is live. So if you move this to yes, it asks you which Infusionsoft custom field you want to save that join link to. So if you plan to send your registration reminder emails from Infusionsoft, you want to make sure that you're able to merge in that link so that the attendees can join the webinar when it's time. So let's go ahead and save this integration, and let's click Done here. And the final tab down here is Resources. So this allows you to upload either a poll or a handout or a call to action if you want to link them to something in the middle of your webinar. For example, I could use this to add my affiliate link for Demio right about now. And if you wanted to sign up for Demio, you would see a call to action that said sign up for Demio and had a link to the Demio registration page or a file that they could, or an image rather, of something that they were downloading, that type of thing. But I'm not going to set that up right now. Let's just click done, and then I'll click save and finish here. And now you can see we've got the next 3 available times. So Wednesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and the registration URL. I'm going to jump back in and double check that Infusionsoft setting and see if we are able to define the other tags that would show up. Yeah, okay, so if they attend, we want to add a tag, and the tag we want to add is a webinar tag, and it is automated webinar 2x attended. Okay, and then if they don't attend, we want to also add a tag, and it's automated webinar 2x missed. So there, now I've got my 3 tags: registered, attended, and missed, and of course those will be automatically applied based on whether or not the person shows up. So if you're using Infusionsoft, I found that I had to save the webinar and then go back into it in order to add that. Kind of a quirk, maybe a bug even that they can fix, and so if you're setting it up and you don't see that, you're either smarter than me or they have resolved it. So now I've got the webinar page live. This one thing I learned is that until this video is done processing, you aren't able to preview the registration page. So it looks like it has processed. So let's go ahead and open this in a new tab, and we should see automated webinar, automated webinar. The webinar is so good we named it twice. There is my little video. And the webinar will start in just a few minutes. Join now. So you can see there is an upcoming session starting right now. That's the just-in-time or the on-demand feature that Demio offers. But it also has a couple of upcoming options for tomorrow, Wednesday at 8 a.m., Wednesday at 3 p.m., and Thursday at 8 a.m. So I think I said a few moments ago that it shows the next 3 days. I believe I misspoke, and it only shows the next 3 instances of this webinar. So obviously I could register and click join right now and test it, but just for the sake of this example, that's all you need. Everything in Demio is now set up. The video file has been uploaded. When they attend, it's going to start right away. They'll launch the webinar. At the end of it, it'll redirect to monkeypodmarketing.com/margarita. And that's it, folks. The next piece we need after the Demio is a campaign in Infusionsoft. So you can see I've got the structure of a campaign built out here. It's going to begin when they register. So automated webinar registered. And then I have this pre-registration sequence. And this is where you would put emails counting down to the event if you were using Infusionsoft to remind them, which we're not, so we'll just leave this as is for now. And over here, we need to define the automated tags. So this one is attended, and this one is the missed one, so automated missed. And so remember, these tags are applied automatically by Demio. So when they register, they'll be achieved, and then they'll hang out in this sequence until they get one of these 2 tags. They'll either attend or they won't. If they miss it, what we're going to do is remove the registered tag. So in here, I'm going to go ahead and remove automated registered. And then I encourage you to maybe add some emails encouraging them to re-register. And of course, those could link to this registration URL, or you could use the one-click registration link. I'm actually not sure how the one-click registration link allows them to select a session. I think it probably just goes to the next available session, but if you want, you could use this registration page just to be safe. Okay, so this is post-production Greg swooping in. I realized I may as well test that one-click registration link rather than speculate about what it does or doesn't do. So what I've done is I've grabbed this link here, and I've queued up a broadcast just to myself. You can see one contact there, and I set up the link to go to the Demio one-click registration link. So I'm going to send this to myself. Let's go ahead and send now. Send. And then over here in Demio, what we want to do is check on the dashboard for this event which of these we see a registration for once I click the link. And my hypothesis is that it'll be whatever the next webinar is, but let's find out. Okay, so that email just came through. We've got the one-click registration link test. Let's go ahead and click it. And in my other on my other browser, this page opened up. Great, you are now registered. Like I said, these pages are really clean, simple, elegant, not a whole lot of customization. It does have an add to calendar link, and it looks like it has done November 27th at 3:46 p.m. Pacific time. So I'm not sure which one that is. Let's refresh this, see if we see a registrant here, and we don't. So I'm not sure what that one-click registration link did for us. You're now registered, automated webinar, November 27th, 3:46 p.m. Add to your calendar or go. Maybe that's right now. You're about to join.
Okay, looks like we are live.
And it looks like they can join right on the fly. So, again, a little bit of confusion around the one-click registration. I recommend testing for yourself. It appears to have just given them a join link that enables them to join the webinar on the fly. But as you saw from probably my reaction, it wasn't super intuitive or clear what was happening. So, again, I would recommend testing for yourself before you deploy that at scale. But if you want, you could use this registration page just to be safe. Okay, so once you have done that, you can set this sequence as ready. And of course, you want that sequence to stop if they register again. So the reason we removed that registration tag is so that we can have it reapplied when they re-register. So let's do the automated webinar registered. And that's it for the people who miss. We're just going to drive them to re-attend. Now, for the people who do attend, that's you if you're watching this, then I have my next action step. So after the webinar, you're going to be redirected to that page where it spells out the things that I recommend for you next. But if you don't take any action there, or you're busy and you leave the webinar early, I've got this next action sequence where we can actually follow up with you and say, hey, thanks for attending. Here are the links and the resources that I promised, and here's what I recommend you do next. And then if you don't take any actions, there'll be a follow-up email, just kind of wishing you well, making sure if you have any questions, I answer those, and probably inviting you to join my nurture sequence. So the goal here in the next action step is that you will either sign up for one of the things that I offer to help enhance your relationship with Infusionsoft, or you'll raise your hand and you'll say, I think it's the nurture trigger tag. Yep. Or you'll raise your hand and you'll say, yeah, send me to your nurture sequence. I want to see what you've got going on. You can definitely stay in touch with me and we'll take it from there. The default option that you don't see here is that you could also unsubscribe. And so I want to be clear that my hope is that the things I'm doing and creating are valuable for you. But as with this campaign or anything Monkeypod does, if you're not interested in hearing from me, then I don't want to pester you. And so the unsubscribe is kind of always the default extra option that you see there. Okay, so if you recall, we left this pre-registration sequence empty. I didn't put anything in there, and that was on purpose, right? Because my registration reminders are coming from Demio. However, I'm going to jump in there now and add a couple of steps here. And I'll explain them as I do it. So the first thing we're going to do is apply a note, right? So this note is just going to be registered for the automated webinar, and you could put additional context in the body of this note, but the purpose is to create a historical record on the contact that they came through this sequence. The reason I do that is because if they don't attend and then they re-register, right, these registration tags and the attended and missed tags are going to be removed and reapplied. And so what I want to do is create a running history of each time the contact comes through here. So I use notes to track key milestones in this campaign or in any campaign. So that's why I have a note here. And I would actually do the same thing in here for people who attend, and the same thing in here for people who miss out and don't attend, just so that once you get those notes in place, they start to give you a trail of breadcrumbs that can lead you to understand that customer's journey. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is actually remove the two tags that we are going to apply whether they attend or they miss. So I'm going to do the automated webinar 2x attended tag and the automated webinar 2x missed tag. Now, the reason I'm removing those here is because if this is their second time through, they're going to already have one of those tags. And so in order to reapply a tag, we need to make sure that it is being removed here. So as you may have noted, after they miss out, I remove that tag so that they could have it reapplied to re-register, and then the same thing happens in here. I'm clearing out the attended and missed tags so that we have the opportunity to reapply them, and that really only comes into play if they register for this event a second time. So that's it from the Infusionsoft campaign side of things. Obviously, I didn't write the email copy, but the campaign structure is there and is built, and that should give you everything you need. You've got your automated webinar set up in Demio. You've got your follow-up campaign in Infusionsoft. That's just about the size of things, guys. So there are really only 3 things that you need in order to launch your own automated webinar. Number 1 is the content. You need to be clear on what topic you are going to cover. You want to make sure you have your script or your slide deck, and then you want to record it and have the actual video file ready so you can upload it as your automated webinar. Now, there's a few considerations here. You want to make sure that the topic is something that people will want to hear about, well, people will want to learn about. It needs to resonate with them and connect to a pain point they are experiencing. Number 2 is it needs to be aligned with what your business does. It doesn't matter how fascinating this topic is if your next action steps are totally unrelated to what you covered in that webinar. So make sure that there is cohesion between what you talk about and then what your business can actually help them with. All right, so the next thing you need is to get super clear on where this automated webinar is going to fit within their customer journey. Now, it could be a lead gen webinar, it could be a relationship building webinar, or it could be a sales webinar. Those are all totally viable options, but you want to be clear on what you are recording because it'll affect the way you speak to them, knowing where it's going to fit in their overall journey. And the final thing you need is really just the technical tools to set this up. So in my case, I used Demio and Infusionsoft, and if those are the things you're going to use as well, then you can really just follow along as I have done. But if you're using a different webinar platform or a different CRM, it's going to look a little bit different on your back end. So just make sure you understand what technical tools you're going to be using in order to execute this. Okay, so earlier in the webinar, right around the 10-minute mark, I promised I would show you what the customer journey looks like that I have created for this tactic, the automated webinar. So as you might recall, the lifecycle marketing stages at a high level are traffic, lead capture, nurture, convert, fulfill, and upsell or encourage them to buy again or encourage them to become a partner or whatever it is that you want to have happen after they've completed everything else. So for this particular tactic, the automated webinar, my traffic came from primarily two channels, either cold traffic, which was through Facebook ads or through paid advertising to audiences that I thought would find this interesting. So if you clicked on an ad to get here, it's probably because you were part of a group that I targeted thinking that you would find this valuable, and hopefully you have. Or you may have already been in my database and you may have got an email invitation inviting you here. So those are the two channels, cold traffic being social media or paid advertising, and warm traffic being anyone who's already in my database that I told about this either as a broadcast or as a step in a campaign. The third channel that might end up seeing this would be if I promote this on my blog. If I write a blog post breaking down this particular webinar, I'll probably link to this to the registration page from that as well. So step number 2 is the lead capture, the registration page. You may recall that I talked about Demio's registration pages being clean, and I do like those registration pages. However, I learned in the process of setting this up that the lead capture from Demio also includes embed options that you can add to your own landing pages. So you'll probably notice that I have created some landing pages that are built on lead pages but have the Demio registration box either as a pop-up behind a button or embedded directly on the page. That was the first time that I had used those features from Demio, and I was actually quite impressed. Now, between lead capture and ultimately where we're going, which is nurture, we've got a stage that is happening right now. It's the deliver stage. So if you're watching this, you're in this part of the journey, the deliver stage, which is actually where you fulfill on whatever the promise is that you made for that lead capture. So hopefully the copy on the landing page said, join this automated webinar. It's going to be pretty awesome, and hopefully you have found it to be just that, right? Hopefully there's alignment between what was promised and what is actually being delivered. Okay, so moving forward, I've got a few things planned for you, right? There's follow-up emails for this webinar. I'm going to tell you about my products and about my membership, and if you decide to purchase any of those, then the automated fulfillment kicks in, and there's a whole progression path for my courses, and you know, if you're interested, I can tell you about my partner program, right? I've got all of those things planned, but it feels a little weird for me to just tell you, hey, that's what's going to happen. Because at the end of the day, you're still in the driver's seat. I may have created the road and I've designed it in a way that I think will be valuable to you, but if at any point you decide, you know what, I'm over it, you just click unsubscribe and you go on your way. It's not like you have to undo anything. It's not like you have to send the emails back to me. Okay, so that is it. In a nutshell, you now should have everything you need to launch a webinar, an automated webinar using Demio and connecting it back to Infusionsoft for automated follow-up. If that's all you came here for, then peace out. But there's no secret upsell. There's no bait and switch. But I do want your feedback. So if you found this valuable and you learned something, reach out to me. That type of stuff is really useful for me to know, because if it was valuable, I can do more stuff like this. If you didn't find it valuable or you thought it was just okay, please let me know that as well. Okay, so after you give me your feedback on this webinar, you got to pick a topic, plan, and record your own webinar. In order to launch it, you have to set up the technical components behind it, and then once you actually deploy it, you start to measure how is it performing. Okay, you ready for my masterful sales pitch? If you are digging what I've laid out here and you want more of the Monkeypod magic, I've got a handful of other courses and, of course, the Monkeypod OG membership, but I'll tell you about all of those on the page that you get redirected to after we wrap this webinar up. In case you lose that URL, it is www.monkeypodmarketing.com/margarita, apparently. Because I've got a lime tree, which has been in my field of vision, tempting me literally all day. I see you. I think the point of those clips earlier and of this one here is that the automated webinar doesn't require you. You don't have to be at your desk. You don't have to be at your computer. It runs when you're at the dentist, or when you're at the grocery store, or when you're at the dog park. And it runs if you're on vacation or if you're making yourself a margarita. Speaking of which... Okay, guys, that is all she wrote. I hope this webinar was valuable for you. If you have feedback on it, you know where to find me. And if you end up launching your own automated webinar, I would love to see it. So feel free to follow up with me and let me know when it launches. I appreciate you, and if I can do anything for you, if you have any questions, let me know. Take care.